Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of What's That Whiskey here on Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron and today I've got a blind sample sent in by my friend Justin from Spirited Reviews. Justin sent me 5 of these blind samples. I went ahead and chose the middle one, which is called A3. I've got the reveal card right here for the end of the video. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this poured out and just quickly remind you that this entire series of What's That Whiskey videos is all about testing my blind tasting ability. So I'm gonna try to guess anything and everything I can about whatever it is that I have in my glass here. So I'm gonna go for age, I'm gonna go for, the proof, the type of whiskey, whether or not I think it's finished, the distillery, a bottle guess, and really anything else I can try to figure out about this. My guesses will appear on screen and then you'll kind of see how right or how wrong I was. It'll either turn green, yellow, or red. You guys have probably seen some of these videos before, and if you haven't, go back and check out some earlier videos of What's That Whiskey. But now I'm giving my glass a little swirl here, getting everything coated so I can get the best possible nose. It's actually a pretty dark whiskey, so I'm curious to find out what Justin is trying to trick me with here. So let's go ahead and go to the nose and see what we get. All right, so on the nose, this is a very intense, honestly pretty hot whiskey. It kind of reminds me right away of like a super high proof BUFFTURKEY sort of profile, but something that's in that like 130 to 140 range. Now I know that that's a lot to guess on an initial nosing. I totally understand that, but it just has that heat, and it's actually a note that Justin talks about sometimes. I wanted to just check my work here before I say it. It's got this like hot and sour soup kind of note. It's a note that you get on some of these high proof BUFFTURKEYs, and when Justin told me like, oh man, that's hot and sour soup, I'm like, oh geez, now I can never not smell that note when it comes to those things. And I am kind of picking that up here on the nose. Yeah, and with that said, as I go back to this and keep digging in a little bit more, I'm starting to pick up a little bit of mango, like overripe mango, a little bit of pineapple, tropical fruit. So I think right away, my initial impression, is that this is a BUFFTURKEY single barrel. Maybe a Dark Arts, because Dark Arts got a lot of the higher proof ones and a lot of the barrels that had a lot of concentration to them. And so while BUFFTURKEY barrels are not really my preferred profile, we did pick a few here for the channel in our single barrel program, but it's not like something that I reach for all the time. Even with that said, this still has hallmarks of a great whiskey, and especially for a particular kind of drinker who's looking for a particular kind of profile. So I think I've learned a lot here on the nose. It's time to go to the palate. I might go back to the nose, as we keep moving through this, but first guess is 130 to 140 proof, 15 or 16 years old, because it's probably BUFFTURKEY. And I think that's all we need to say for right now. So here we go to the palate. Cheers. Yeah, so this has to be BUFFTURKEY. There's a ton, and I mean a ton, of like tannic oak, but the way that it comes off with these higher proof, intense BUFFTURKEYs, which I'm just gonna full send on that guess now, the way that it comes off is that the tannin and the drying experience on the palate is really coming from the fruit notes. It feels like you're eating mango and you're eating pineapple and all these and grapefruit as well. And that after you eat them, it just completely dries your palate out. As opposed to feeling like it's got a lot of aged oak, which in a typical profile, I think, of a Kentucky bourbon, that aged like leather antique oak is what feels like it dries your palate out. Here, it really feels like it comes from the fruit notes. Now the proof actually doesn't feel as high as I thought. And so I'm like going back and forth. I'm starting to just like stare off into the distance and talk slow, because I think as far as BUFFTURKEY goes, this is actually a pretty good barrel. It's just that like, I have to be in the mood for this. I have to want something that has this profile to reach for it and really go and really enjoy that sip. Otherwise, it just feels like, whoa, it's a total shock to the system. And it's, that's what I'm dealing with right now. I'm coming off of filming a few videos before this, and I'm just like, this is hitting me in a weird way because I've had a lot of high proof stuff. I've had a lot of old stuff before this. Now I move into like tropical fruit land. And yeah, it's like, if I want tropical fruit in my whiskey, I have to really, really want that to enjoy the profile. But like I said, I think as far as BUFFTURKEY goes, this is a really, really good barrel. So I'm gonna go back to the palate now. Yeah, high concentration on here. There's a lot of like vanilla icing, funfetti sort of sweetness that goes along with those tropical fruit notes. That hot and sour soup note that Justin talked about is in there as well. And so I'm gonna rate this out of 100. I sometimes forget to do that in these videos, for these What's That Whiskeys. I'm gonna give this a pretty high rating, even though, again, subjectively, I don't always love this kind of profile. Have to be in the mood for it. But objectively, I think it's a really great barrel and a really good whiskey. So I'm gonna rate this an 87. I think I'm gonna go 87 on this because I think it's very, very solid. But I do need to lock in my final guesses as far as like proof and age and everything else goes. So let me do one last sip. Let's go ahead and lock in some guesses now. As I've sipped this more and more, I feel like the proof is not quite as high as I initially thought on the nose. So I'm gonna make a weird guess, and I'm gonna say 127 proof, 16-year Buff Turkey, unfinished, and I think that's all I really need to guess. So let's find out what this is. High 80s for this, as far as my scoring goes. I might be overshooting here, but I think this is a really nicely balanced barrel of Buff Turkey. They all have tannin, they all have tropical fruit. You're never gonna get away from that. And if it's not Buff Turkey, then I'm a complete idiot. Maybe Justin's totally tricking me, but like I said in the beginning, I had to full send on this. So let's see, what do we have? Okay, there we go. So it is a Dark Arts Buff Turkey pick. I should have stuck with my initial proof guesses. 16-year, 135.6 proof. So I went down to 127. I should have stuck higher. As I sipped it, as with any whiskey, it's gonna feel like it gets lower proof as you acclimate to it. That's what happened here. So I needed to trust my gut. My gut would have said something in like the 132, 133 range, but it was 135.6. This is a very solid Buff Turkey. And like I said, Dark Arts tends to have, as far as their percentage, hit rate on these Buff Turkeys, probably the highest that I've seen. And I think it's because they got early access to these barrels. So that's gonna do it, guys. Let me know how you think I did. 87. If anybody's tried this barrel, which is the Flintlock Barrel Society pick, let me know if I'm, close as far as what you would rate this and your impressions on this as well. Thank you, Justin. It's funny that Justin taught me that hot and sour soup note on Buff Turkeys, and now sometimes it's all I can taste when I get these things in my glass. So that's gonna do it, guys. Cheers, and I'll see you soon here on Drums and Drams.